Um, so we're here to discuss, the proposal that the Commission has made on currency conversion. And in my introductory speech, I would like to focus mainly on the second part of this proposal, and namely, the transparency rules on currency conversion. And let's maybe, before we start talking about the proposal as such, say a few words about how did we end up here. You are familiar, like every summer, I think we read in the papers and on TV how, people who were on holidays, they were ripped off by certain currency conversion fees, and then what they had, to pay for their holidays or when making some purchases abroad. And a common theme that we hear most of the time is that, we hear the word DCC, or dynamic currency conversion. Which is, most of you, I think, are familiar with it, but maybe I'll start by defining what it is or how it works in practice. So that's, let's say, when you are at a restaurant, let's say, so you live in Belgium, so you have a card issued in Belgium, and then you go for holidays, let's say, to London for a weekend, and then you want to pay at the end of your meal, at a restaurant, and then when you are trying to pay, you are given the option: do you want to pay in euros, or sometimes you can have the or, sometimes it's only you have one option, and we'll go back to this, but in euros or in the local currency of the country where this is happening. So in my case, in British pounds. Most people would think maybe that, if I can pay with my own currency, right, that should be, the best option. And that's exactly what doesn't happen in practice, in most cases. And that's, I'm sure, Jean is going to give you more details about the research they have done there. But so when you are given the option to pay abroad or in a country that does not have the same currency as, the country where your card has been issued, this is where, DCC is offered. So that's the dynamic currency conversion. And maybe one additional aspect to mention here is that when DCC is proposed to you as a consumer, you don't know that, but that's mainly the merchant who will have, why, for instance, as John was mentioning, you are, as a consumer, pushed sometimes to use that option. It's because actually the merchant, in this particular case, will have, a bit of the fee that would be charged. They can gain actually some money over there. And that's why, in these cases, merchant could be, somehow asking you or pushing you towards using that option. So at American Express, you might know, like, we act as both the issuer and the acquirer. So we have actually done some internal research to try to understand, what does it mean, to offer DCC, somehow to please our merchants. And then based on research we've done internally, it was very clear, like more than 90% of I would say the those who took the study and the survey didn't like the option of using DCC. And that's why, at the end of the day, based on this I would say pilot, we decided not to offer DCC. And then if you are using your American Express card, you will not have the option of paying with using DCC. It would be only, the issuer fee which would be applied there. That's why also we did actually support, Beyrouthy when they were somehow criticizing the DCC. We thought like more transparency is needed there, and we have conveyed this this position, I would say, to all stakeholders involved. But then the proposal came, and here I would say we were a bit surprised by the scope of the proposal, because the proposal, the transparency proposal, didn't tackle only DCC, but it was much broader. It was actually tackling all different transactions involving currency conversion. And while we didn't think that's a bad idea per se, because at the end of the day, it had the benefit of launching a debate there. I think given the time that was left to the institutions to agree on this proposal, and given all the I would say the previous consultations that were conducted focused more or less mainly on DCC, we thought it was it could have been a good start to start tackling the DCC issue as such, and then maybe at a later stage make it, enlarge it, and then talk about other issues there. In this proposal, some I would say of the practical issues that were there that we didn't feel it was the right time to introduce them. One was the interim cap. We didn't think that we have tried all the different transparency options or possibilities before we can set a cap, even if it was interim, as it was there. And then we believed giving the European Banking Authority a lot of powers to develop regulatory technical standards, as it was in the original proposal, was not actually a very good idea, because a lot of political choices needed to be made. Without going into many details, we believe these should be dealt at level 1 of legislation, so mainly by the Commission, Parliament, and Council. Then the Council decision, or the general approach. So the Council was very quick, as you know, and then we somehow liked the idea that the Council did not, take on board the interim cap, and then also, the powers of the EBA. But then we somehow feared, like, also in the way it was put there, like even DCC providers were not somehow included in the scope anymore. And we believe that was a bit problematic for one main reason. Actually, we do believe that DCC providers should be applying the same transparency measures that are included in the Payment Services Directive 2, so Article 58 precisely. And so we believe, because this is the way where, from a practical perspective, then as a consumer, you are able, to compare, at least to know what, the fees you are going to pay, with the issuer or with the acquirer or the DCC provider at the merchant location. How do we like to see the future? We believe certain aspects should be included in any future regime. First, DCC should never be either the only option available to the consumer or set up as the default one. I think that's very important. I mean, I was mentioning few examples before we sat here. In Bulgaria, for instance, I personally wanted to pay once with a taxi using a credit card, and then the only option available there was to pay in euros. And I didn't have the option to pay in local currency, which is normally the issuer fee, which I know in most cases, here we've seen most people don't know maybe which option to use. I know that I should never use DCC personally, so that's what I would recommend also, if you want to listen to that. But I wasn't given that option, and I found that just strange. So I think this is really key to have as a sort of rule or amendment to the legislation. I think this is important. And also I think the second one is really to make sure, like, any other currency provider other than a PSP need to apply the same transparency requirements that currently all PSPs need to do, as a consequence of the PSD2. I think this is also very important. And I think this could be, a sort of good start to tackle, the problems created by DCC, one way or another. And then I guess once we have this at a later stage, in a few years, then, the Commission can then monitor what has been done. And then if other than, problems arise or we need to tackle, given the broader scope, then at that time this could be more, I would say, appropriate. You would have a better consultation of the industry. Then you could have all those involved in there. So not only I would say we talk a lot about card or card schemes and so on, but then you have all the ATM I would say providers. You have other I would say stakeholders in the industry that offer or they are involved in the currency conversion transactions that also need to be consulted. So I might stop there.
1 minute.
I have 1 more minute? Good, perfect. That's great. So for me, it's also from a consumer perspective. I fear like if with this proposal we don't achieve, at least to tackle the DCC problem, then we would have failed. I'm trying, to I wouldn't say shoot for the moon, but really, to try to deal with all the problems of currency conversion. If, as a conclusion, at least we don't deal with the DCC problem, then we would have failed, at the